be with you. I will never leave you, nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. This is a major milestone in Joshua's life. Moses is dead. He remembers Moses is dead. God reminds him Moses is dead. And then God says these words to him, which could have been just so precious to Joshua's ears. God says, as I was with Moses, I will be with you. You can imagine Joshua at that moment say, God's presence is with me too. God has just spoken to Joshua, and he said these words, and he says, I will be with you, I will never leave you, I will never forsake you. So Joshua can now say, God's presence is with me too. But what about the people? Can they say that? No, we have to go to the next milestone to see what happens. In Joshua chapter 3, I can't read the whole section for you, so I'm just going to read a couple snippets of it. You're going to have to follow along with me. But starting at chapter 3, verse 1, we're going to pick this up. Actually, we're going to pick it up in verse 6. Joshua said to the priests, take up the ark of the covenant and pass on ahead of the people. So they took it up and went ahead of them. And the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses. Tell the priests who carry the ark of the covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan's waters, go and stand in the river. Go to verse 14. So when the people broke camp to cross the Jordan, the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant went ahead of them. Now the Jordan is at flood stage all during harvest. Yet as soon as the priests who carried the Ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a great heap a distance away at a town called Adam in the vicinity of Zarethan, while the water flowing down to the Sea of the Arabah, that is the Dead Sea, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. The priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant to the Lord stopped in the middle of the Jordan and stood on dry ground while all Israel passed by until the whole nation had completed crossing on dry ground. See, what had happened when Moses left Egypt? When he left Egypt, they came to the Red Sea. And Moses stood at the edge of the Red Sea and he raised his staff and the sea split in two. God was with Moses. And now God says to Joshua, I'm going to be with you just like I was with Moses. Now, this isn't the Red Sea. This is the Jordan River. But it's at flood stage. Okay? So it's bigger than normal. It's at flood stage. And Joshua, I'm not going to do it the same way. I'm not going to have you raise the staff. That staff was Moses' thing. What you're going to do is you're going to tell the ark and the carriers of the ark to enter the water. And they had to touch the water. Their feet had to touch the water, but then they get to the water and it parts. Not in the same kind of dramatic fashion with a wall of water and a wall of water, but somehow a distance away it dries up. It piles up in a heap, it says, and then down there it just keeps flowing until now this is dry. So miraculously, somehow the ground had to get dry enough for them to walk on. I'm not exactly sure how this whole thing happened, but here's the thing. Before it was Moses and his stick. Now it's God's presence, symbolized by the ark and the priests. God is saying, you don't need Moses. You've got me. God is saying, you don't need a stick. You've got my presence. And so have my priests go in there first, and they will demonstrate it's the presence of God that is doing this miracle. It's not Joshua, it's not Moses, but my presence is with all of you. And now the people of Israel can say, as God was with Moses, he's with us. God's presence is with us too. Joshua tells the people to grab 12 stones from the middle of the river, and they grab those 12 stones, and then when they set up camp later that night, they stack the 12 stones into an altar. And there at the altar, Joshua says, now when your children ask you what these stones are for, you will tell them this story. So it's not just Joshua, God's presence is with me. It's not just the people of Israel, God's presence is with us. It's all of their children. For decades, for centuries, they're going to be able to say, God's presence is with us too. As he was with my parents, as he was with Joshua, as he was with Moses, God's presence is with me too. And so, you would think the story would be really happy from that point on. But things go bad real fast. Go to chapter 5. Joshua chapter 5, we're going to pick it up in verse 10. On the evening of the 14th day of the month, while camped at Gilgal on the plains of Jericho, the Israelites celebrated the Passover. They had left Egypt and they celebrated the Passover. Now they're entering the land. They've left the wilderness behind, and it's the time to celebrate the Passover. So they're going to celebrate the Passover. God is with us like he was with Moses. God is with us like he was when he delivered the people from Egypt. The day after the Passover, that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land, unleavened bread and roasted grain. Wild wheat is just growing in this place. And they go and they pick some, they roast the grain, they make some bread. Oh, this is great. The manna stopped the day after they ate this food from the land. There was no longer any manna for the Israelites, but that year they ate the produce of Canaan. This is for you and me. We can look at this as a victory moment. They've celebrated the Passover. They've ate some produce of the land. They don't need the manna anymore. But for these people back then, that was not a glorious moment. Remember, they'd been wandering in the wilderness for 40 years because God wanted all the people who left Egypt to die in the desert because they had disobeyed him. God wanted them all to die in the desert. The only two people who are still alive from when they left Egypt are Joshua and his buddy Caleb. Moses is dead. Everybody else is dead. That means everybody that he is taking into the promised land was born into manna. Manna was that miraculous food that God provided every single morning. So they would wake up and there on the ground would be this miraculous bread type food thing. And these people were raised on it. From the time they were born, they were eating manna every day, like clockwork. And now they've entered the land. They've crossed the river. They were on the mountain. God is with us. Moses is dead, but now God is with Joshua. They've crossed the river. God is with us. He's with us just like he was with Moses. They've got ready to go into the land of Jericho, and all of a sudden the manna stops. This is the way we are with God all the time. God will give us a blessing that is just all we've ever known. Health, financial security, good relationships, something. God will give us a blessing. It's all we've ever known. We've come used to it. We're taking it for granted. We just kind of go with the flow of this blessing until finally one moment in time comes and that blessing is gone. And we have the tendency to say, is God gone? Has God left me? Has God taken a break? Because see, if the blessing is gone, that must mean that God is gone. If God left the manna, these people could stay in the desert for forever. If they crossed the Jordan River and they had the manna, they could stay right there for forever. But by taking the manna away, God forced them, pushed them into the promise. They had to go on to that next level. They had to go to Jericho. They had to conquer the city. They had to move into the land because they had to eat. And God says, I'm not going to give you the pacifier anymore. Every parent knows at some point in time the children have to be weaned. Some point in time they need to grow up a little bit. And God is here saying to the people, and you know what? When you're in that dark place, the relationship that you thought was so great has turned sour. The marriage has gotten rough. The finances are not the way you thought they should be. The cancer has come back. Whatever it is, you're going to be in that place where you say, the manna's gone. Has God left? And this is Joshua now trying to lead a bunch of people who are asking the same question. Is God really going to be with us like he was with the people of our past? One more milestone. You're there in Joshua 5. Take a look at what happens if you just make it to verse 13. Joshua's there, the manna is gone. Now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" Natural question. Here's a man, a soldier. Are you on my side or are you on the side of my enemies? Look at the reply. Neither, he replied. But as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come. Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, what message does my Lord have for his servant? The commander of the Lord's army replied, take off your sandals, for the place where you're standing is holy. And Joshua did so. The line is profound. See, the question is God with us? Is God with us? Is he on our side? Is he still there for us? And so now here's the soldier, and Joshua asks the question that he wants to ask. Are you for us? Are you on our side? It's clear he's kind of an angelic being, right? Right? I mean, he's a man standing there with a sword out of the middle of nowhere. He just kind of pops into existence. And so what in the world, Joshua, it seems like this must be a spiritual encounter of some kind. And so he asks, are you on my side or are you on their side? Because at this point, Joshua doesn't know anymore. The man has gone. God made promises to him, but he doesn't know if he can trust these promises. And so now the guy is right there. He says, are you on my side or are you on their side? And the guy says, neither. I want God to be on my side. But when God shows up, he doesn't show up to help me accomplish my goals. God shows up to remind me what his goals are. See, God is present. As the commander of the Lord's armies, I've now come. That's the line. He says, God is present with you. I'm his representative. God is here. God is here now. God is present. Yes, yes, that's not the question. That's fact. The fact, God is here. The question, are you with God? It's not about whether or not God is here for you. It's a question of whether or not you are with him. See, that's not about being lucky, like God somehow picked me because I'm special, that Joshua is somehow better than the rest of the people. No, it's not about being lucky. It's about being humble. Humble enough to say, God, I'm with you wherever you go. And that's exactly the way God has always worked. That's the way God worked with Abraham. That's the way God worked with Moses. See, from the outside, you see God talking to Moses. You see the cloud coming down and Moses in the tent and Moses speaking to God face to face. And you think, man, Moses is special. He's unlike me. I'm over here. I'm not experiencing that kind of stuff. That's Moses. He's special. And then you realize, wait a minute, the reason that God is with Moses is that Moses, of all the people, was humble enough to say, God, whatever you say, I'm going to do. That's why God keeps coming back to him. That's why God speaks to Joshua and he says, if you keep all the laws in my book, I am going to make you successful and I will